And from a mental health perspective, I took that as like, what if as a community we did more for people? Like one of the things that I valued in the pandemic, right, and like trying to keep myself well and finding the silver lining is finding what has actually become more stable, right? Like I'm 26 years young, but I have the spirit of someone who's 50, right? And so I grew up in a neighborhood where like I actually knew my neighbors. Like we grew up in the ghetto, but we knew our neighbors because, like my homie ain't play that. My mom was like, I need to know who living next door to me. If it's an emergency, I want to trust that you can go to the next door neighbor. Yeah. So like I found value in that. Like seeing people go to the store for their elderly neighbors and seeing people check in on people, doing Zoom calls and virtual ride-bys, baby showers, weddings. Like it's catapulted people to a position where they have to do relationships. And I love that. Like, even if you don't rock with nobody, like you have to do relationships. Even if it's like the cashier that you see at the grocery store every week, or the person that bring you your click list order, curbside pickup, like you have to kind of do something. And so I found that like in terms of mental health herd immunity, if you are someone who knows somebody in your life is struggling, like just literally saturate them with love. Like don't be the gasoline to their fire. Like saturate them, herd immunity, build love, build respect, build encouragement. And let's create people that are like infectious and contagious with respect and love and loyalty, honesty, giving, peace, and patience, right? Like let's create that kind of herd immunity. Like forget that pandemic stuff they talk about. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's like that hits the nail on the head, because really with how things are going, we're going to be in close proximity with each other for some time. So build those bonds and like really identify with some of those issues, because with some of the fast pace that life does take, we don't really have time to like notice these things, and silver linings, things have slowed down enough to where we can't ignore them. You can't just drown yourself in work when work is there. For all my workaholics out there, it's all right.
Yeah.
Forms take
Guilty. Right. But yeah. So I mean, I think just more than anything, be attentive to changes. And what I tell anybody, even if you're not a professional, if your gut tells you that something is not okay, then chances are something is not okay.
All right.
Like at the very bare minimum, I can't even tell you how many people I see on a weekly basis that it's like, I would not give you a formal diagnosis, right? Like I would not say that you have a chronic mental health like concern, but you have a situational stressor and you needed to come talk to somebody. Like that's okay. You rather, you know what I'm saying? Like people go to the doctor all the time and be like, I got coronavirus. And they're like, actually just the pollen count is really high. Here's an inhaler. See ya. Right? Like they are bandages, and mental health professionals can be bandages. And, I'll just drop this nugget here is that you don't always have to be in a crisis to need help. Like life doesn't have to be so bad to still need help. Like you don't have to be drowning in sorrow and misery and depression and anxiety to need help.
I don't know about y'all out there, but that hit. Yeah, no, that's very true. Like being proactive and pretty much doing what you need to do to maintain your wellness, so it doesn't replace a crisis. Because it's easier to put something together that's still got its parts together versus absolutely from the bottom up and from scratch.
Yeah, like I tell my clients, I'm like, would you rather like be able to just put on rain boots and walk out of a puddle, or try to like have your nose up in the air in a tsunami? You know what I'm saying? Like, come when it's a puddle, not a tsunami.
No, that's real. And speaking of like, tsunamis, puddles, just metaphors, and like people like just being overcome with certain situations. One of the real conversations we need to have is like when we identify unhealthy coping mechanisms, our family or our friends, like what are some that we need to be aware of, and how can we possibly like have that conversation with them without triggering them to dive into it deeper?
And deeper, yeah. So like, and that's, sometimes that can be a tricky line to navigate, even for therapists, right? It's like, how far do I want to push you to like get you more to a line of motivation to change rather than motivation to be more indulgent in the thing that's causing you the problem in the first place. And so I think a good place to start is like, as people, we can't always say what's more healthy or what's more unhealthy for someone because we don't live in their body, but you can say like, is what you're doing, if it has a negative effect on your quality of life, right? So like a big key in mental health is always looking at someone's quality of life, right? So I'll give the example, like I told you, I work in prison, right? So we have some inmates who like, it could be, we have two different inmates. Inmate one showers once every 3 days because he is chronically depressed. He misses his children. He can't see the parole board until 2057, and life is just all bad, right? And then we have another inmate who might have general anxiety, and he showers once every 3 days because that's just what's comfortable for him. That's the way that he always lives his life on the street. So right, one, we could say like, this person is severely mentally ill, like we need to do more, engage more in treatment, because him not showering is affecting his quality of life and perception of self. Inmate number two is just like, yeah, we could probably talk to him about improving his overall hygiene, but it's not really affecting his quality of life, right? So when we're talking about coping mechanisms, you want to look at how they're affecting somebody's quality of life. So I know, like I said, I believe that there's victory in people's vulnerabilities. So, with the viewers, like my brother got killed in a car accident back in December. And one of the things that one of my therapist friends had to call me out on was just like, yo, Vonda, like, you're going to the gym 2 times a day, 6 days a week. Like, I know you got these body goals, but like, you almost have become obsessive about it rather than it being fun for you, right? Because I had ditched on some plans because like, no, I gotta go to the gym or I'm not gonna feel good. And she's like, I understand that it's a part of your self-care regimen, but now it's become an avoidance coping mechanism. And it's like, I'm like, you're right, because I'm more of a get up at 4 a.m., go do my workout and going about my day. I wasn't really waking up in the morning. I was doing a workout at home, but then I was going to the gym at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night after working all day, sometimes both jobs, because that's when I started to think about my brother a lot more, when I was getting ready to go to bed, because my mind was slowing down. I didn't really have anything else to distract me. And so, but that was affecting my quality of life, right? Because I go to the gym at 8, I would stay till 9:30, sometimes 10, and then come home and be exhausted but couldn't sleep because my brain was still moving, right? Because I'm listening to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, like that ain't really, some good night lullaby,
Yeah.
right? So like, when we're talking about, us on the outside looking in on our loved ones, really be attentive to how that's affecting your quality of life, right? So, people, especially in our community, like, I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, okay, let me put this into perspective to you. Because people say therapy is so expensive. I'm like, okay, $80 an hour, like that can be expensive. But if you spend $80 once a month coming to therapy, but every week you spend $120 in Uber, wings, Hennessy, and weed, and going to your interest fee in the club, all for like 7 hours, and then you got to do that every weekend just to get through the week. Wouldn't you rather just spend $80 once a month coming to therapy to get like some actual like sound understanding of the situation that you're going through and some actual effective tools that can help you, right? So like, if you notice that people are doing stuff so repetitiously to the point that they can't survive without it, like that might be a time to like step in and say, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? Because if somebody want to have one shot of Hennessy on Friday after a long week, but it's like I can get to next week without having this one shot of Hennessy. You know what I'm saying? I don't really drink Hennessy. Or usually it's a glass of wine. I can't rock with the Hennessy. You know, I left that in Shrop. But but
subscribers, yeah, I just lost like all of that. that was their lifestyle. No, but you're right. Right. You know, you got to really prioritize.
Is it taken away from your quality of life is always the key point. So even if you are internally assessing that, it's just like, if I can't get to the next thing without doing this thing, maybe I have developed too much of a codependency on it. And at that point, is it actually me using it as an effective means of coping, or is it me pushing into it so that I can avoid doing what it is that I need to do? Yeah. Right. So like, yeah, just looking at how much it has on your quality of life. Again, if you are a person that takes a shot once a week, but like, you know, you don't really notice it like doing anything, you're just like, I like to do this because this is something I'll do as my self-care. Like, that's one thing, but it's like, I cannot start Saturday without having my shot from Friday night because I'm just so wound up. That's affecting your quality of life, right? Because if there's anything we learned in Corona, everything that we always thought we have access to can be gone at the snatch of a fingertips. Your coping mechanisms, like, if they were happen to be snatched from you, could you figure out something else to do? Or are you so attached and so codependent on those things that like you literally couldn't function? Like, that's probably not like the most effective coping skill for you, right? Like, it's supposed to be an aid, a helper, not a full-blown replacement.
I'm glad you said that, because that literally leads into our next question. You are on point today.
Transitions.
Oh, you on point today. So, seeing how we're talking about coping mechanisms and identifying what is actually serving you and what is not, how do you shift over to healthy coping mechanisms or replacement behaviors, especially when, like, during this time, transitioning for anybody, like, look, just not going to work as a transition is hard versus this is helping to keep me together, you know, kind of thing for a transition, you know, that's very much present. Like, you are in the front of your family every day. You look at your bank account every day now. You are reminded by all the things in life and TV that things might not be changing anytime soon. Can you offer any strategies on transitioning into healthier coping mechanisms or replacement behaviors with that in mind?
I think with that, like, being open is probably going to be your best bet, right? Again, because it's kind of like, you can be complacent in what's convenient, or you can, you know, kind of be like transformative. And so I think a lot about these people that have started making these masks, right? So I have some offenders that I work with in the prison. And if you know anything about prison, like, everybody is trying to figure out how to get some bread, like literally some bread from the chow hall or commissary snacks, because that is the like financial capital in the prison system, right? And so I had inmates that, you know, are extremely creative, right? Like, tattoo artists, draw things, like sell people pictures that they can, you know, give to their kids in letters. But obviously they called it the Corona economy, right? It dried up. Like, everybody just in prison, like, they ain't got no money, in the community ain't got no money. So they start making like masks just to sell people for the low. And then they got recruited by like the director of the department to help make masks for inmates, 50,000 inmates that we have incarcerated in the state of Ohio, right? So like, yeah, they not really getting paid for it, or they might get an extra cup of coffee or, you know, something like that. But more than anything, they found their purpose, right? Like, I had an inmate come to me and was like, Michelle, I'm not really getting paid for this, but I actually like do feel better knowing that I'm making like a mask. He was like, it's a mask, but it's a mask that's gonna help keep somebody safe, you know? So like, he didn't even realize the power of what he just allowed out of his mouth, that when you do something that's so unorthodox and untraditional to what you're doing, you might mess around and find like your purpose and find that you're good at